let me introduce you to our distinguished guest speaker for this evening. Carol Wainwright is a singular voice working at the intersection of racial and environmental justice. In her scholarship, she brings Black voices and lived experiences into conversation with a deeply religious naturalism. In her most recent book, Black Lives and Sacred Humanity, Toward an African-American Religious Naturalism, she draws from Anna Julia Cooper, W.E.B. Du Bois, and James Baldwin as she works out an embodied theology that reveres the natural world and all the dear ones with whom we share it. Carol is professor of the philosophy of religion at Bucknell University. She is the recipient of an Oxford University Fellowship in Religion and Science, a Science and Religion grant from the John Templeton Foundation, and a fellowship from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Her previous works include Post-Structuralism, Feminism and Religion, Triangulating Positions, and The Legacy of Anne Conway, Reverberations from a Mystical Naturalism. Carol is a frequent contributor to Zygon, the Journal of Religion and Science, the American Journal of Theology and Philosophy, Philosophia Africana, and Religion and Public Life. I think it may be clear from even this brief introduction that Carol is a brilliant thinker, but perhaps most importantly, she is a delightful person and an engaging conversation partner. Friends, we are so fortunate to have Carol with us tonight to guide us with her intellect, insight, and passion, and to help us think about the work ahead. Will you join me in welcoming to Charleston our friend and teacher, Carol Wainwright.
I'll be with you in a moment. I want to turn on my PowerPoint. Ready? Okay. Well, Jeremy, that's quite an introduction. I thank you. I wish y'all could see me smiling behind this mask because it's such a delight to be with you. I'm really honored to be here to share with you some of my work in religious naturalism. And I look forward to engaging your questions and comments at the end of my presentation. Before beginning, however, I do want to pause to thank Jeremy for extending this gracious invitation to participate in Circular Congregational Church's prestigious lecture series, for his kind introduction, and especially for his exquisite warm hospitality and our new friendship. I also offer my deep appreciation to Catherine for managing the logistical matters with impeccable efficiency and warmth, to Francis for his assistance with the technology, to Charlotte and all others at Circular Congregational Church who have contributed generously and greatly to making my visit seamless, comfortable, and lovely. And it's a pleasure to be with you here in Charleston. So in my presentation today, I offer for your consideration get used to the technology. A meditation on the theme of wonder that is grounded in the theoretical principles of religious naturalism. The model of religious naturalism that I introduce advances a conception of the human that encourages our transformative engagement with each other and with the more than human world that constitute our existence. In doing so, I suggest that religious naturalism facilitates the turn to wonder. What I identify as wonder basically are aesthetic, ethical responses associated with a particular mode of existing in the world. In this modality, we actively affirm who and what we are as particular life forms who are attentive to how we become human in a particular manner. In this modality, humans creatively affirm our constitutive relationality and our embeddedness in materiality. And by default, we embrace life in all of its splendor and complexity while seeking to alleviate as much as possible excruciating forms of suffering. After offering a theoretical overview of wonder, let's see, this is not, sorry, let me see what's going on here. Yes. So that was for what I just said, and we're getting used to technology here. Let's see if I can do it. Okay, thank you. After offering a theoretical overview of wonder, I then locate its fuller meaning in the poetic, philosophic expressions of select iconic American figures. Individually and collectively, these visionaries, writers, and poets have countered a hegemonic narrative of humans standing outside of nature and managing nature to our own benefit. Their works collectively help to re-inscript the human as part of life's complex web of cosmic and cultural meaning. I now begin by introducing religious naturalism. For some of you, this might be a new term, and you might ask, what exactly is religious naturalism? It's an emergent set of varied perspectives that asserts any truths we are ever going to discover and meaning in life we are ever to uncover or reveal to us through nature. As a model of religiosity, religious naturalism departs from traditional Western models in several respects. It is grounded in the observational scientific conviction that nature is ultimate, and it features a communal ontology. At the heart of this ecologically based worldview, in all of its variants, is a basic conviction. Any truths we are ever going to discover and any meaning in life we should uncover are revealed to us through the natural order. Thus, the qualifier religious in religious naturalism affirms the natural world as the center of humans' most significant experiences and understandings. One crucial idea of religious naturalism is emergence. According to one of the renowned proponents of religious naturalism, Ursula Goodenough, who has spoken here, by the way, and she's the founder of Religious Naturalist Association, of which I am a member. According to Ursula, emergent properties arise as a consequence of relationships. For example, the relationships between water molecules that generate a snowflake, or the relationships between neurons that generate a memory. Emergent properties also give rise to yet more emergent properties, generating the vast complexity of our present-day cosmic, biological, ecological, and cultural contexts. Religious naturalism thus encourages humans to reflect meaningfully on the emergence of matter, and especially life, from the Big Bang forward, promoting an understanding of myriad nature as complex processes of becoming. Another central theme of religious naturalism that I highlight tonight is that humans are simply one branch of a seemingly endless natural cosmos. Thus, understanding the deep history of the cosmos is profoundly important for comprehending the materiality of being human, of being alive in the manner in which we currently find ourselves. As Lawyer Rue, another major proponent of religious naturalism, observes, humans are a composite of many interlocking natural systems, atomic, molecular, biochemical, anatomical, and ecological, apart from which human existence is incomprehensible. So humans are essentially natural byproducts of other natural processes, and we're intimate participants with them. In short, as Michael Fox observes in this passage, our bodies contain the mineral elements or primordial rocks. Our very cells share the same historically evolved components as those of grasses and trees. Our brains contain the basic neural core of reptile, bird, and fellow mammal. We're also structured by relationality. As this passage from Ursula Goodenough observes, humans are by our very constitution relational beings. I'm going to repeat that. By our very constitution, we're relational beings. That's going to be an important thing to remember tonight. And our wholeness occurs within a matrix of complex interconnectedness in ways of conjoining with others that transform us. In short, we belong to an expansive, biotic community. In this wider ecological context, humans with other organisms are bound together in a web of mutual interdependence. And in this particular context, I pause to emphasize an important point. Our humanity is not a given, but rather it's an achievement. So I want to emphasize we actually become human in a particular manner. So from a strictly biological perspective, humans are organisms that have slowly evolved by a process of natural selection from earlier primates. From one generation to another, the species that is alive now has gradually adapted to changing environments so that it could continue to survive. According to the strict biological account, our animality, from this perspective, is living under the influence of genes, instincts, and emotions, with a prime directive to survive and procreate. Yet, this minimalist approach fails to consider what some cognitive scientists, many humanists, philosophers, and religionists tend to accentuate, and that is our own personal experience of what it is like to be an experiencing human being. As I have discussed elsewhere and published about, we become human or actualize ourselves as human beings in this sense. There's an awareness and a desire to be more than a conglomeration of pulsating cells. Our humanity is not reducible to organizational patterns or processes dominated by brain systems, nor is our humanity structured solely by DNA, diet, behavior, and the environment. Rather, in positing fundamental questions of value, meaning, and purpose to our existence, human animals become human beings or human destinies. Our coming to be human destinies is structured by a crucial question. How do we come to terms with life? How do we come to terms with life? In my reading, this fundamental question is one that requires our rapt attention as it facilitates the turn to wonder. So, What do I mean by wonder? It's not merely intellectual curiosity or emotional awe at the facts of life out there, but rather a particular mode of existing, of being in the universe. And in this modality, we are actively attentive to affirming who and what we are. In this modality, humans creatively affirm our constitutive relationality and our embeddedness in materiality. This evocation of wonder grasps what Neil deGrasse Tyson affirms in this fascinating, mind-boggling manner. Atoms in our bodies trace to remnants of exploded stars. My friends, we are stardust. We are alive in the universe, and the universe is alive within us. The atoms of our bodies are traceable to stars that manufactured themselves in their cores and exploded these enriched ingredients across our galaxy billions of years ago. For this reason, we are biologically connected to every other living thing in the world. We are chemically connected to all molecules on Earth, and we are atomically connected to all atoms in the universe. We are not figuratively, but literally stardust. So, my fuller sense of wonder then is living out of this awareness of who and what we are. We are literally stardust. And in doing so, we recognize that humans are life forms that are participants within a complex set of natural, material, relational processes that constitute reality. In this modality, we pause, grasp, and are moved by the sheer facticity that all humans also belong to the flow of life itself. Indeed, each of us participates in life grandeur. And you note I said each of us, because that's going to be important to recognize shortly as well. With this expansive sense of how we are embedded in miraculous life, wonder then becomes the practice of honoring the fullness or the more of life. There is, in this particular context, a commitment to what Peter Van Ness affirms as the spiritual dimension in life. And that is the embodied task of realizing one's truest self in the context of reality apprehended as a cosmic totality. When we practice this type of spirituality, this type of embodied spirituality, we are seeking to attain an optimal relationship between what we truly are and everything that is. This understanding has also been expressed by the philosophy of Alfred North Whitehead in the 1930s. He offers another philosophical way of understanding the truths that I've just highlighted, the science. According to process thought, all reality consists of processes rather than material objects. And processes are best defined by their relations with other processes. Thus, rejecting the theory at that time, which was popular when Whitehead was writing, that reality is fundamentally constructed by bits of matter that exist independently of one another. In the language of process philosophy, therefore, we affirm that we belong to one another. We belong to one another. And this particular principle is expressed by the principle of internal relations. According to this principle, what we are made up of are a host of entangling, ever-changing relationships, all of which leave their traces on our life from its beginning to its end. At the same time, each of us are, within the context of those relationships, creative agents who can make a difference, great or small, in the lives of others, in the immediate present and in the long-range future. So what I would like to do now is to focus a bit on the type of ethics that we can glean from these theoretical ideas. The wonder that I'm trying to have us think about basically envision intimate connections or forms of intimacy within myriad nature, of which we are a part. It celebrates humans living, experiencing, and seeing differently as relational, material beings, in marked contrast from some of the dominant set of values operative in the United States today. And those dominant values are the isms, racism, xenophobia, classism, all of the ways in which we as a nation are highlighting alienating forms of relationality versus the more robust forms that I've been highlighting. And I want to emphasize here, you see the bottom, wonder cannot be realized in the abstract, it must be lived, as Jeremy highlighted at the beginning. You have to enact these values and not just think them or feel them. They must be put into practice. So one particular current voice who's very helpful in this context is Robin Wall Kimmerer. Her work is helpful because she's a botanist and she's also an enrolled member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. She has urged dominant settler cultures to redefine their evolving relationship with nature, forging new values and modes of valuation appropriate to our sense of the more than human world. In short, Kimmerer to a heightened sense of wonder of our entanglement with the more than human worlds that surround and even support us. In this beautiful passage, she elaborates on the gift of strawberries to humans. She says, the plant has in fact been up all night assembling little packets of sugar and seeds and fragrance and color, because when it does so, its evolutionary fitness is increased. When it is successful in enticing an animal such as me to disperse its fruit, its genes for making yumminess are passed on to ensuing generations with a higher frequency than those of the plant whose berries were inferior. What I mean, of course, is that our human relationship with strawberries is transformed by our choice of perspective. It is human perception that makes the world a gift. When we view the world this way, strawberries and humans are transformed. So when we begin to see in this expanded way that Kimmerer suggests, we can appreciate our embeddedness in a complex matrix of becoming and experiencing that is part of wider nature itself. Another particular voice that would be helpful here to think about how to understand our intimate engagement with more than human nature is Merlin Shadrake. He has studied fungi, and he describes spheres of more than human communication that reveal intimate interactions between organisms underground. Fungi are fascinating to Sheldrake because they provide an excellent case study into how organisms use their chemical senses, featured in distinct olfactory systems, to explore and make sense of their environments. He states, plants, fungi, and animals all use similar types of receptors to detect. When molecules bind to these receptors, they trigger a signaling cascade. One molecule triggers a cellular change, which triggers a bigger change, and so on. In this way, small causes can ripple into large effects. So when humans ingest and smell mushrooms and fungi, we can detect some compounds as as low a concentration as 34,000 molecules in 1 square centimeter, the equivalent of a single drop of water in 20,000 Olympic swimming pools. What does this suggest? Basically, what Sheldrake is suggesting is that his study into fungi gives us remarkable insight into just how intimately entangled we are in more than human nature. Another way of expressing our intimate forms of engagement. With the capacity to smell, with the human capacity to smell, we wondrously participate in the molecular discourse fungi use to organize much of their existence. These examples by Kimmerer and Sheldrake bring to mind a really cool notion in religious naturalism known as metaphysical perspectivism, which holds that the world humans inhabit has a plurality of entities, each with its own individuality and particularity of expression. Accordingly, everything that exists in the world has a distinctive perspective on everything else, as depicted in this passage by Donald Crosby, another religious naturalist. All the elemental particles, atoms, molecules, compounds, inorganic and organic entities, and combinations of those entities, including human beings and their histories, cultures, and societies, and all of the actions, reactions, functions, qualities, and traits of those particular beings and their relations are included. No two perspectives or systems of them are exactly alike. This type of epistemology that I've just highlighted can become an ethical principle that grounds and enriches how we can live in wonder, as I suggest here. Let us be attentive to how we can become aware of and embrace the deeper truth that humans are essentially our relationships. Who and what we are our relationships. I cannot emphasize that enough. And we are constituted by our relationality. We then must become receptive to perceived differences among us and celebrate the biodiversity of our species. Celebrate the biodiversity of our species. Again, no isms. And you know, we're really good at that, are we not? In differentiating between ourselves, who's better, who's less. This is what I'm trying to get at with this technical speech. It's good church language here. Love, love, love. We become curious about the possibilities that you and I, we belong together, that we can create together. And we seek to enhance our constitutive relationship rather than diminish it. We seek to expand robust forms of relationality rather than impoverished, alienated forms of relationality. So, with this in mind, I would like to share with you some poetic articulations of this dry theoretical discourse that I've given you. And I thank you for bearing with me. This is the Academy coming to you. Thank you. Mary Oliver, one of my favorite poets. Okay, I see some nods here, wonderful. She's a religious naturalist, whether she claims it or not. In this poem, Sleeping in the Forest, Oliver highlights, Sleeping in the Forest. In this poem, Oliver highlights the intensely sensuous bodily experiences of the forest inhabitants that reveal subjectivities that do not depend on the typical culture-nature divide that is featured largely in much American folklore and cultural narratives. I'll just read. I thought the earth remembered me. She took me back so tenderly, arranging her dark skirts, her pockets full of lichens and seeds. I slept as never before, a stone on the riverbed, nothing between me and the white fire of the stars, but my thoughts, and they floated light as moths among the branches of the perfect trees. All night I heard the small kingdoms breathing around me, the insects and the birds who do their work in the darkness. All night I rose and fell as if in water, grappling with a luminous doom. By morning, I had vanished at least a dozen times into something better. The state of sleeping, which is an intimate activity, allows us to see that humans are already immersed and entangled with the smaller worlds upon which we depend. Another author, Annie Dillard, another favorite of mine, touches on a similar theme in her work, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, when she's describing her experiences in a remote part of the Blue Ridge Mountains, weaving together observations of the surrounding landscape with personal longings and musings. Dillard speaks of dwelling differently because she also sees differently as the mountainous landscape. In other words, she sees as the mountain sees. She takes on a different perspective. She observes, intricacy is that which is given from the beginning, the birthright, and in intricacy is the hardiness of complexity that ensures against the failure of all life. This is our heritage, the piebald landscape of time. We walk around, we see a shred of the infinite possible combinations of an infinite variety of forms. As with Oliver, Dillard's reflections revealed a profound perspectivism, suggesting that our limited human perspective is always a part of a multiplicity of perspectives. Our own limited human perspective is one among many perspectives in this larger context of nature. She writes, I am sitting under a sycamore tree, a sycamore by Tinker Creek. I am really here, alive on the intricate earth under the trees. But under me, directly under the weight of my body on the grass, are other creatures, just as real, for whom also this moment, this tree is it. Another wonderful figure in the 19th century, Walt Whitman, in Leaves of Grass, offered a poetic rendering of humanity's entanglement with more than human life. Whitman uses erotic immateriality as found in his effusive language, affirming our basic interconnectedness. I celebrate myself, and what I assume, you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. And in another section of Leaves of Grass, he writes, I loaf and invite my soul. I lean and loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. My tongue, every atom of my blood, formed from this soil, this air, born here of parents, born here from parents the same, and their parents the same. As a site of illumination, Whitman's intimate experiences with one small spear of grass discloses an essentially relational self that can resist solipsistic tendencies and egoistic impulses. There is no isolated entity who stands over against the fields of interaction. Another important figure is Anna Julia Cooper. I'll be with you. Who is an early 20th century figure, African American from North Carolina. Speaking to her white peers, Cooper emphasized egalitarian principles at work in nature to speak out during her time of racial superiority in terms of what we're now calling white supremacy. In one essay featured in her collected volume, A Voice from the South, Cooper asserts, "Now I need not say that peace produced by suppression is neither natural nor desirable. Despotism is not one of the ideas that humanity has copied from nature." And my friends, these are people speaking in the 19th century. We are inheriting their legacies here. Encountering the skepticism and positivism of various European philosophers who saw humanity as nothing more than a conglomeration of cells, best explained by scientific empiricism, Cooper also re-envisioned the human as an important finite realm constituting a unique value-laden matrix of potentiality within the unfolding of cosmic infinite possibilities. And what's fascinating and unique about Cooper's voice at this time is that she applied this vision of nature to racial, gender, and class injustices, which she said were unnatural impositions on humanity's innate yearnings of achieving or becoming our humanity in infinite ways. Brilliant insights from these various figures. Her historical example and her sensibilities anticipate and strengthen the case for an eco-aesthetic ethics that addresses justice for myriad nature, injustices between human beings and injustice between human beings and more than human nature. It's not either or, it's both and. Both and. From this particular perspective, we come to a term that Wendell Berry has highlighted that he calls propriety. According to Berry, propriety describes the fitness of our conduct to our place or circumstances, even to our hopes. In other words, it affirms the fact that we humans are not alone. Our life inescapably affects other lives, which inextricably affect our life. So, in conclusion, I would like to say, as we are inspired by Cooper, Berry, Whitman, Dillard, and Oliver, I invite you to consider inhabiting a life of wonder. Or, if you are already living in wonder, to deepen that experience. In doing so, we remember a bit of wisdom articulated by religious naturalism. Humans are actually structured in our evolutionary capacities as biological organisms to love. We are structured, we are wired to love, my friends, and to create alternative systems of interaction and forms of relationality. When we do this, when we emphasize our mutual interdependence, we are compelled to act, to live, and wonder in a way that addresses intersectional forms of oppression. So I would like to say that let's consider wonder as aspirational living. In doing so, we want to recognize that when we're here in Charleston, let's also think about the realities and the injustices that proliferate around the globe. Whether we're speaking about the legacies of slavery and unjust wars, climate change, ecological crisis, species extinction, ocean acidification, international trade and immigration, poverty, human rights, it is so sad that the list is endless, isn't it? It's sad that we could go on and on and on. But in light of this, what we want to think about is that with a very humble and yet incessant aspiration to live in wonder, let us try to do our best, persist in our actions, invigorated by our moral imaginations. As Chet Ramo, another religious naturalist, suggests, last one. Sorry, this is it. Each of us is profoundly implicated in the function and the fate of every other being on the planet, and ultimately, perhaps, throughout the universe. We are within the universe, and that the universe is within us. Thank you for your time.